One of those shaky attempts against the French is the Horwitz attack, which starts with b3. The idea is to sacrifice the pawn, and after knight c3, knight f6, queen e2, bishop e7, white castles long, and goes for g4, g5, h4. Then they get the pawn back and keep up a strong attack on the king side. And it actually looks pretty good for white. But here's the thing, rather than grabbing the pawn on e4, I'd say just ignore it. Focus on getting the pawn structure we actually want, one that keeps white's b2 bishop from becoming a real problem. And to make that happen, we actually want white to push e5. And that's why knight f6 might be the way to go. I mean, you can pretty much play anything else. For example, c5 looks good as well. Just waiting for white to play a move, which actually gets tricky for them. And to illustrate this even better, let's say we waste a whole move playing a6. Now, white doesn't really want to go knight c3 because of d4. And the other knight cannot go to f3 since d takes e, comes with tempo. e5 isn't in the plans because of the b2 bishop. And if e takes d5, that same bishop doesn't quite fit with the coming d4 push. But instead of just waiting, I say let's be proactive and develop our knight to f6. White pushes forward, and here is the shocker. We play knight g8. We don't care about losing a couple of tempi, because what really matters is that we've provoked white into blocking their b2 bishop. Plus the knight on g8 has a clear path to f5, which wouldn't be possible if it went to d7. Now, since knight fd7 feels way more natural, let's take a look at that as well. In general, whenever possible in the French, white wants to put pressure on the king side with queen g4. But since white's dark square bishop isn't on c1 h6 diagonal, gaining some space with h5 seems completely fine for black. The queen pulls back, and we push again. Advancing this pawn gives black better defensive chances and even a possibility for counterplay. Okay, the queen goes back to g4, and now c5, gaining control in the center. After f4, knight c6, and knight f3, black has a bunch of options, but I like the idea of rook h6, aiming to advance f5 and free up all the pieces. And black has no real problem here. So knight fd7 isn't bad, it's just not as interesting as knight g8. And when the knight is on g8, we can clearly see that queen g4 does not make sense because of knight h6. So instead, white focuses on building the center like in the advanced French with d4 and c3. Then knight c6, knight f3, bishop d7, and we are waiting for white to play bishop d3, which is a very active place for the bishop, but it weakens the d4 pawn, and this means there is a possibility for an exciting way of playing in view of this next move of black, which is g5. What a move! But that heroic push on the king side works because, and I need to stress this, because the b2 bishop is, again, a bit misplaced, defending the central pawn chain. Now, black is threatening g4, and I guess white responds with h3. We should proceed with h5, and g4 may not be an immediate threat, but it definitely discourages white from castling short. Black is ready to trade pawns on d4, play bishop e7, queen b6, and castle long. Now let's see what happens if white proceeds the way the computer suggests, playing g4. As we have already mentioned, black takes on d4, plays bishop e7, and then moves the queen to get ready to castle. Suddenly the g4 pawn is hanging, and if white plays rook g1, just notice how their pieces are tied down with no obvious plan. Black can either improve their king's position, play a5 if they want to stop any queenside expansion from white, or even consider advancing f6 at some point. Overall, it's a straightforward game for black with a couple of clever surprises. The knight retreat to g8 is the first, and then this bold g7, g5 push, which can really throw white off balance.